Welcome to another episode of the EmpowerMAN podcast. It's your boy Mikey G coming to you live from the free state of Florida. And this afternoon, because we are filming on a Saturday afternoon, I am looking across the screen and I'm seeing a guy who identifies with the phrase, if the gloves don't fit, you must acquit. This guy can beat any charge that's held against him. Yes, he did watch Shark Week with Stormy Daniels, and she loved it. Greg A. Tedora, number one. Sir, how we doing today?
We're doing good, man. Thank you for that laugh. I need it. Stormy Daniels is not my type. You know who is.
I do. I wonder if she's listening.
I don't
Guess
know.
we'll never know.
Guess we'll never know.
Mind Stormy's work. I've seen some of her work. I think she's an artist. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, I think she's all right. Listen.
Yeah. All good, man. How are you?
Hey, the courtroom believed her, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. How am I? Well, inflation's high.
Mm-hmm.
Cost of living has gone up.
A little bit.
We live in a country where you can convict someone on charges that just come out of nowhere. Things are good.
Good.
Just saying.
What's the story behind the shirt?
22 veterans a day die from suicide. So this is for veterans suicide awareness. Because we love our military, we love our brave men and women that defend our country and our freedoms from what's left of it. Now, I know it's negative. I gotta be more positive. Just to raise awareness of soldier suicide and prevention. Because whether you like certain people in politics or not, the truth of the matter is our veterans that go and fight overseas and to different countries for our freedom are now homeless, and they shouldn't be homeless, because without them we wouldn't have this platform. And that'll segue into my part of the program, where I thank our EMTs, our firefighters, our policemen and women, our firemen and women for always protecting our local municipalities and our communities and keeping us safe.
Absolutely. It's a good segue, Mike. And definitely something to be aware of. A lot of those guys are offing themselves. It's a shame. And we are nothing but thankful here for them. And our community thanks them. So thank you to all the military personnel here and overseas, to their families, making the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you for everything you do. Keep your head on a swivel and be safe. And I just want to give a shout out to Mike Glover. Hope you're doing well, buddy. And keep your head up.
100%. 100%. Greggy T, today is actually a really interesting topic, and I've thought about this, and not to sound like 2024-ish, but I've actually meditated on this. Family
Ew.
planning. We talk about, I think family planning in a secular sense, where there are clinics you go to and they teach you about things and yada yada yada. But what EmpowerMAN and what we are practical people. So when you plan for a family, sometimes it's expected, sometimes it's unexpected. But I think a lot of people don't really understand the responsibility and the weight of having a baby and having a family. And, I lived a pretty good life, years ago. So I might have something running around. I don't know. But you have two young children, and when, becoming a father and the preparation for fatherhood, I think it's something that we should talk about, because I think a lot of men are not prepared to have a family. They're not prepared for fatherhood. And you have a family, you are a father. So, Greg, in your process of procreating and creating your family, what were some of the steps? Because you're very meticulous. What were some of the steps and thoughts that you had?
That's another
prior?
word for anal.
I'll leave that alone. Terrible.
Sorry, Mom.
No, yeah, sorry, Carol. What were some of your thoughts? I have to do my train of thought now. What were some of your what was your process in plotting out? Okay, I'm going to have a family. What steps do I need to take to make sure that I'm prepared for that actual day of happening?
It's a big question with a lot of different layers to it. For me, when I was younger, I didn't want kids. Even though I had a great upbringing, had the best upbringing, had great mother and father, stayed together, had awesome childhood. When I was, doing my thing, college, after college, that was the last thing on my mind. I wasn't planning for it, didn't want it. And then when you get older, some things change for some people, not everybody. And the thought of having kids would be cool because I'm pretty young at heart and I'm an idiot, so I like to have fun. And I think the putting two and two together with the person you want to do it with or have them with, which is a whole other topic of this equation. I think once you mentally decide to have that mental conversation with yourself of committing to that, because if it's a true commitment, then you just start thinking about it. What I mean by commitment is you when we were younger, we were very selfish in a good way. We were all about ourselves, want to have fun, our friends, blah blah blah. When you decide to have a child or children, that's literally out the window. It is not about you anymore. And that's a problem for some people because they don't look into that. They don't see that down the road.
Right.
Talk about that later. But I knew for me, things change. Like, me, I'm very, like you, we're very scheduled. We like our routine. We like certain things at certain times. Well, that you can try your best. And you see it from me every day. It don't work like that when you have kids because it is all about them and things come up and oh, I'll never miss the gym. You're going to have to rearrange your schedule. Oh, I'm never going to miss this. I'm never going to do that. You're going to rearrange your schedule because it is complete shit show, especially when they're younger, because they cannot take care of themselves. You're the only one keeping them alive. Everything is about them. So there's no more selfish plans.
Mm. Did you feel you had to give up certain things in regards to not behaviors or habits, but you often hear stories about guys that were wild and then they had a kid and then they calmed down and they realized, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
put the kid first. Did you feel that you had to calm down in certain ways, or did you feel like, okay, I am now stepping my game up because now I have this extra responsibility? Was it a trade off, like giving up a wildlife for the family, or was it like, hey, I was not really that wild to begin with. I'm straight. Now I got to elevate my game.
It's a little bit of both. For me, it is. I was never, you know, going out drinking all the time or whatever. We had our moments, but it's both for me. So I'm wild and crazy in not the going out aspect of the nightlife, but a little careless or reckless in other areas or dangerous things or like bodily harm or stuff like that where okay, you might want to dial it back a little because somebody's depending on you. If you get hurt and you
That's
need
right.
surgery or something like that, who's going to take care of them? So that's one aspect of it. So I think it's a combination of both. I had to dial it back a little for certain things so I didn't get hurt or injured or anything. And the other thing is it's just coming to terms with it's a different chapter. And a lot of girls, but it's also guys too. I think a lot of people look down on that. Like, oh, I got to stop doing what I'm doing now because I have kids. I don't look at it like that. It's just you're just switching the lens. That's all you're doing. You can still have an awesome, fun life. You can still do pretty much everything you want to do within certain limits, and it's not about you anymore. That brings me back to that. It's about them. So a lot of my friends that have motorcycles, they still had bikes when they had kids. I'm all for having a motorcycle, having kids. A lot of people give me shit for it. You shouldn't get one. It's dangerous. Whatever something happens, man, you can get hit by a car walking your dog across the street. So it doesn't. You don't have to be on a motorcycle for that. I understand being reckless on a bike. That's a whole different conversation. Being stupid doing 150 on 95, that's different. That I think is a
Mm.
little reckless. But I think you don't have to give up everything just because you're having kids. You just have to dial it back a little bit.
I think people now are facing more challenges than ever when deciding to have a family. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
like I mentioned earlier in jest about inflation, cost
Yeah.
of living, social strife. You know,
Mm-hmm.
let's be honest, the world that we grew up in and that we came into is not the same world that your kids, or if
Nope.
I ever have children, are going to be brought up in.
True.
So I guess, my thought process is, if, I'm going to have a child, then I want to espouse my core values onto them. I want to
Yep.
pass that on to them and make
Mm-hmm.
sure, like, they're not protected, but they have, the Bible talks about putting on the full armor of God to withstand the attacks of the enemy, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
now when we have children, we want to make sure that we give them the defense mechanisms to protect them against a lot of things that you see going on in the world that just isn't right. What was right or wrong to me may not be to a lot of our listeners out there, so it's germane to everybody. But Greg, let's break this down a little bit. Family planning in 2024. How is it different than when you had your daughters, what now, 5 years ago? Your
Yeah.
oldest is going to
Farrell
be
will be
5 this year.
5. Yeah.
Farrell will be 5. How has that changed in 5 years? Or has it changed? Or let's even add on to that. What do you, the difference between now and when we were raised and we were born in the late 70s?
So once again, a lot of different takeaways from this question, but it's very different from just 5 years ago. And it's funny, when I was younger and some of my friends had kids, they were always talking about the school systems and this and that, and I never paid too much attention to it because I didn't have to at the time. And now I'm just fully immersed in it, and because it really makes a difference. Because there's some towns around here that are doing all that woke shit in school, and it's I'm not cool with that. I don't want my daughters around that. Um, and so you have to be involved. And I think parents nowadays are less involved in their kids because both parents have to work because of what you said earlier, inflation, cost of living, everything. It's expensive. Usually, most parents have to work, and therefore they don't have, not full control. I don't mean like that, but they don't have control over the involvement level that they should be with their kids. And I'm not saying they're not doing a good job. That's not what I mean by that. But if you're always busy working, how involved can you be with their school and other things? You have to make the time for that. And I think a lot of people don't. But the school systems are different nowadays. Planning for them financially is different now than 5 years ago. Things are more expensive now than they were 5 years ago. And people like you and me, we pay for everything, and we do well. And I see when I go shopping a family of like 8 kids, and I'm just constantly doing math in my head. I'm like,
Of course.
how in the world? I have two, and it's crazy, and we do well. It's insane to me. So I can't get over that math. But you have to be involved because there's so many different possibilities of danger now. I think it's also more dangerous now with the technology and the cell phones and all the shit that's out there. We didn't have that. We could ride our bikes, and we rode our bikes everywhere. And we were just
Mm.
home at night when the streetlights came on. Like, that's cool. You hear everyone talking about it. How often do you see kids ride bikes now? You usually don't. And if they do, they're probably peddling some drugs on the street. So they don't ride bikes. They're not that active. And the whole trafficking thing is just blowing up like crazy.
Crazy.
There's abductions like crazy. There's armed robberies. There's carjackings. All that. One just happened 2 weeks ago at the Trader Joe's parking lot, like I said. And lady put 3 of her kids in the car. Guy pulled up, tried to rob them and take one of the kids. Broad daylight. Things like this didn't really happen back then. Maybe one-offs occasionally. Trafficking is the number one thing now. Crime is going through the roof because of all the laxed laws, and the more relaxed laws are coming. Like, they're just letting them walk. So what do you think? What message do you think that sends? It's open season, so that's another thing you have to think about when you're with your family. A lot of these women, if they're going shopping, they have their headphones on or whatever. They're not aware, situationally aware of what's going on around them. You have a kid, and you need to know how to protect them and what to do. that people don't understand the speed at which things happen. 2 seconds, you're in my car and you're gone. You don't know where I'm going. I got you. And all these factors should be thought about when you have kids and start a family. It's not to scare people. It's just the world we live in now. It's
Yeah.
definitely more dangerous.
Yeah, I remember growing up, I think the kids, like, there was a Say No to Drugs. I remember Nancy Reagan doing
Yeah.
that. And there was also a lot, I mean, I think pedophilia now is more rampant
Rampant.
now, but
Rampant.
I mean, back then it was kind of kept, you swept it under the rug.
Hmm.
It was
It was
like,
hushed.
it was hushed. There were
Hmm.
now, but the crazy thing is that in some places, if I'm wrong, correct me, please, even our listeners, pedophilia is almost like encouraged,
California and some other states. Yeah.
right?
They're
Where
trying to make it a orientation or something,
it
or I
blows
don't know,
my
whatever.
mind. I mean, these
It's
are
crazy. Hmm.
innocent kids,
Yeah.
and in the planning process, I guess protection is how, like you mentioned, how you protect your family from just the amount of trafficking. Well, I mean, whatever, whoever watches what news source, I think, whether people want to believe it or not, there's a crisis at our border, and you see, people, babies being smuggled in, being used as drug mules. I mean, these kids are enduring hellish conditions, and
Yeah.
they're just kids, and every kid has a right to be a kid, and I think we've lost that somewhere along the lines. I don't know how, but I think, like, when you have an animal and you see the world through the animal's eyes, and you see how helpless they are, and how they, like you said, they depend on us for everything. Children, the same thing, comfort and protection, and everything else.
Yeah.
When you're planning out things, Greg, when you were planning your family, let's take a step back.
Hmm.
How did you prepare financially? Did you save money? Did you start a fund? Did you get an extra job? How did you prepare for the financial burden of having a family and starting a family?
So I always was like, oh, there's never enough in the bank, never enough in the bank, never enough in the bank, and then time goes by, time goes by. Our friend Alex, shout out to him. He actually said there's never enough money in the bank. There will never be enough money in the bank, so you might as well just start it. And he's right on that. I agree with him 100%. So there's guys and girls out there that like to see a certain amount in the bank. Oh, when I hit that number, then we can start a family. It's like life happens, and you might
Yeah,
get that number and you might not get that number, but
right.
if you really want to start a family and if you're mentally ready and the finances are somewhat there, then don't wait, in my opinion. I believe with what he said. I agree. It was good advice.
Because I think it, I mean, like I said, I don't have any kids, but I
Hmm.
might have something running around there. I don't know. I did have a lot of fun when I was younger. If I did now, they'd probably be like teenagers. So let's hope,
Probably your neighbor.
probably.
Hmm.
So, if I'm thinking practically, right? If I knew, like, I was gonna have a family, then I know I've got kind of like a 9 month stretch there to make sure that my partner, whoever, we have dual incomes, and to
Hmm.
make sure that we sock away as much as we can and try to plan out at least a year's worth of maybe living expenses, if that's possible. I don't know if you could do that, maybe half a year, maybe 7 months,
Hmm.
because again, we talked about this in previous podcasts. The term partner gets thrown around very loosely, but a true partnership is 50-50, right? I
Hmm.
mean,
Should be.
we all talk about
It's 50-50
equality.
in all levels, in all categories,
Exactly.
not just 50-50 in that category.
Right. And especially with equity and being equal, right? If the man and woman are equal, then there should be a equal partnership or equal
Hmm.
burdening of the duties. So,
Hmm.
obviously, you know, your wife or your girlfriend or your partner or whatever you want to just deliver, they're not going to be able to work for a while. So I'm a very pragmatic person, and I would kind of think about and factor in, okay, I, I know I have about a 6 or 7 month span, let's say 8 months, okay, just for argument purposes,
Hmm.
to save money and start planning for that day. Is that a reasonable approach, or should you, um, I guess, I'm trying to articulate this. People that want to start a family, Greg,
Hmm.
financially, what would the steps be to make sure that when the day comes, they're covered? That's what I meant to say.
there's no right or wrong. It's just an opinion. If you're comfortable with saving as much as you can for the 8 months, that's cool. Like I said, there'll never be enough, but you just want to be prepared with the basics, like crib, diapers, food, or whatever. But yes, you want to, but it's like anything else. If you own a house or even if you rent, you should have an emergency fund in case something breaks or in
Mm,
case you need something. You don't have to, you're not hurting, putting it on credit or dipping in your pocket. You have it kind of set aside.
mhm.
Same thing. It's the same thing with starting a family. Like, okay, we're gonna, start to try. And maybe if you're both working, maybe you just sock away money in an account together. I don't know. And you just, here's $100 each every week or every 2 weeks, whatever. It adds up through time. But you don't touch it no matter what. It's literally for
Right.
the baby and the needs that's coming. So I think
Right.
any plan, there's no specific number like you have to, save X amount by no, it's just if you have a plan, have a plan and then execute it. No matter what that plan looks like, whatever makes you comfortable, because everyone has different financial capabilities and stuff, and it's not always about money. Money's a big part of it, but it's not all
Right.
about that.
Well, let's just discuss the medical care first instance. I have a prenatal
Hmm.
business that I operate out of.
Yep.
I operate because the pre and postnatal fitness industry needs to get shaken up. When you look at health risks and certain things that can happen during a pregnancy, obviously a lot
Hmm.
of things can happen. Miscarriage is the biggest one. You can have
Which
preeclampsia. You
are
can have,
way, way more common than people think.
of course,
So
and
common.
something as simple as not drinking enough water can
Hmm.
cause miscarriages. It can be a cause. That's not the root cause, but it's one of the contributing factors. But you
Yeah.
look at other health risks that a woman faces during pregnancy, and emphasizing how important it is for a woman to exercise during her pregnancy.
Yeah.
When you're going through that process, how are the medical costs? Did insurance cover most of it? Is saving and planning for a family? How much should you allocate towards healthcare?
It depends if you have good coverage or not. If you have good coverage, yeah, a lot of it's covered if everything's normal. But I'll back up one step. The best thing we did was take a birthing class. We took a couple birthing classes, and it's not like, oh, sit there and hold her tummy and breathe. It's not that type of shit. It's more of your hospital rights. It started with that, which
Mm,
blew my mind. I didn't want to take this course, and I ended up loving it. I mean, loving it. It was every week. And the amount of rights that the mom has and the dad, but the mom's the one giving birth, the amount of rights that that woman has that she has no idea she has is mind blowing. You go in and you a lot of people trust the medical field. They trust the doctors. Whatever they say goes. Sorry. Yes, to a degree, but do you know your rights? You can say no to this. You can ask for that. You can delay this. All of this shit
right.
that no one knows. I didn't know any of it until I was taught it. And thank God I knew it because nothing happened, but I knew what I wanted going into it. And we had a birthing plan and we posted it like outside the door. And those are our rules. And there's no non discussion. And if you're going to try to debate us, get the fuck out of the room. That's it. And it was flawless. It was awesome. We had great birthing experiences. And we had a doula and we were going to do a home birth, but we didn't. We did a birthing center. It was great. We didn't do the traditional hospital stuff, but it was amazing. And just knowing your rights and learning the process can help with the baby's health, the mom's health, the overall health of the birth. It's insane because the hospital is a business and it's an assembly
Oh,
line, and they want C-section scheduled. It's like maintenance for a car, like oil change, tire rotation, fill the fluids. It's the same thing in a
Wow.
hospital. I'll blow it open with that. It's literally the same thing. They schedule them because it's a moneymaker. Some people need to have them. That's not what I'm saying. Some people want to have a C-section. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that people that want to give birth or try to give birth naturally, you can. You got to know your rights. When you get there, they're going to try, like if some little thing happens with the blood pressure or whatever, your heart rate, immediate, they're going to say, like, let's take you in for a C-section. And most people panic and just listen to the doctor. Know your rights. You don't have to do that. You have some time. You can do this. You can. There's things you can do. There's protocols that you can override as a patient and as a soon-to-be mom that you can tell them what you want. Worst case scenario, sure, let's do that. But we have a lot of time before that. I know I'm kind of getting off topic here, but a simple thing is like cord clamping. When they, clamp the cord, that's all the blood from the placenta that feeds the baby, right? So when you give birth, obviously the placenta's still there.
Mm.
Normally in a hospital, what's the first thing they do within the first fucking 10 seconds?
They cut it,
Cut the
right?
cord. Nope. All the blood and all the nutrients are still going into the baby. No, it's awesome. It's still going into the baby. And the baby needs all of that. It's called delayed cord cutting or clamping, whatever you want to call it. And you don't know that's your right. You can say, I'll cut the cord, and I'll cut the cord in fucking an hour. Go away. Leave me alone. I'll cut the cord in 10 minutes. I waited with Farah until it turned white when everything went into Farah, like from the placenta, was all good. I waited, clamped it, they cut it. Awesome. Ruby, I waited like fucking 10 minutes. It was awesome. It was awesome. And I learned a lot. Like the lady showed me the placenta. It's called the tree of life for a reason. It's insane. It was really cool. But something like that, the rights that people don't know because you're cutting it, and all that blood and all those nutrients and stuff like that, they're now not in the baby where it should be because it's feeding the baby. They're cutting it right there. Something simple. May not be a big deal to a lot of people, but it should be if you do your research. Rights like that are huge. Knowledge is huge. You should get finances, yes, but also know what you're getting into. You should tour different hospitals because they're all different. You should get to know the staff. They do tours. Walk me through a birth here. Who's the go-to person? What nurses are on? We didn't like one nurse. I threw her out. I don't want to see the rest of this birth. The rest are cool as shit. You're allowed in. You have that right to do that.
Mm.
All of this is part of planning. Like I said, it's not all financial. It's little details like this.
Mm. Yeah.
Best
Can
class
some
I ever took. Best class.
can someone look this up online? Is there a place you can find this online? You know?
There's courses you can look up or um like birthing plans and birthright classes to take. Yes. And I still keep in touch with the lady that taught, her name's Cynthia, that teaches the course up here. She also has a podcast, and all she does is educate people, educate the moms and the dads on their rights.
That's
Because no
big.
one knows it's huge. Nobody knows. Because you're in the hospital, you think what they say goes. Nope, it is not. But no one knows that. So how would they know? I had a lot of friends that had traumatic birth experiences. And in my opinion, they didn't have to be. And I was like, oh, why didn't you do this? They're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. I was allowed to do that. I'm like, 100%. They didn't know. So what you don't know, you don't know. They're like, oh my God, I wish I took this course, or I wish I knew that. How'd you know that? I'm like, because she dragged my ass that I didn't want to go. And after the first class, I was like the first one in the first row. I was paying attention. It was fucking awesome. It was awesome. And I try to help everybody and share that. Like, listen, you need to learn these things. Know your rights when it comes to going to the hospital to give birth.
Yeah, that's huge. I think you hit the nail right on the head, man. I think a lot of people don't realize how much rights they have. It's like how many people really know the Constitution or know their Bill of Rights? They
Yeah.
don't. That's why this world is the way it is right now.
And
But I
listen, and
think,
then a
yeah,
lot
go
of
ahead.
guys are lazy. And a
Yes.
lot of, and I'll shit on the guys right now. A lot of these fathers don't even know where their kid's school is. Half of them, They're not involved. So if they're not involved, it's all on the mom. And the mom's like, I want to take a birthing course. He's like, oh, I'm playing golf. I don't want to fucking go to this. And then she doesn't end up going. And there's that missed opportunity of learning because it's just a bad recipe right there. You guys need to be on the same page. And if you're bringing a life into the world, you both should commit to learning as much as you can about that.
Right. And now, to kind of use that as a springboard to the next topic, unfortunately, there's an epidemic of homes without a father.
Yep.
Right. We can look at it from an ethnic standpoint. We can look at it from a geographical standpoint. But however you look at it, it's wrong
Mm-hmm.
that a father is absent from their child's life. Now, if something happens through death, obviously,
Yep.
that's something. And you hear a lot of stories. I hear more stories now as I'm older about guys who date girls with children and they become stepchildren. And you see the father. I think of Shaquille O'Neal and his story
Hmm.
about his dad, and then his father took on the family. And I think that's a wonderful story. And if people don't know Shaquille O'Neal's story, I encourage you to look it up
Yeah.
because Sergeant Phil whipped those guys into shape. And
Oh yeah.
as saturated as Shaq is all over the place, deep down inside, this guy is pretty genuine because he was
Still
raised
humble.
still
Still humble.
humble, and he does things for people because he was raised right. And people go, "Oh,
Yep.
it's a
Strict.
work."
Very
Yeah,
strict.
yeah, you could look at it as, "Oh, it's a work," or he's just doing this because he wants to
Mm-mm.
be famous or
Nope.
whatever. It's legit. And as a father, I mean, Greg, just as a father, how could you fathom not being a part of your child's life?
It's not even my brain will never compute that. I don't know. To answer your question, I would it's so foreign to me.
And I don't think this has a tag to it. I think it doesn't matter what shape or size or life form you come in. It doesn't matter. What's right is right. What's wrong is wrong. Whether you believe in God, whether you have a moral compass or not, it's not right that a father is not a part of their child's life or doesn't
Or
contribute
mother.
to, or mother, agreed, or not contributing to your child's needs and welfare.
Hmm.
I find that un uncomprehensible. I can't comprehend that. I just
Oh,
don't
but I write
understand.
a check, and it's not all about money.
It's not.
There's no price tag on being there and with your kids,
And
and
then
they
these
don't care
people
about money.
know. And then later on in life, they want to have a relationship with their children, and the children reject them, and they or not that they reject them, but they maybe expect the child to forgive them. Right? You can be like, hey, I wrote a check every month. That's great, but like you said,
Mm-hmm.
it's not all about money. It's about actually
Nope.
being involved. It's
Yep.
about doing things. And believe me, Greg and I are the first to admit no one's perfect in this world.
Correct.
Maybe the father that made the family, that's what he saw growing up, and he thought that that was acceptable. I'm not justifying it, but it can
Mm-hmm.
explain a certain behavior. But I also think of, as a man, if you're old enough to get someone pregnant, then you should be old enough to figure out what to do. That's
Yep.
just me. That's just me. Maybe I'm harsh, or maybe I'm being too
Not at all.
naive, but for the life of me, Greg, can never understand. And for any guy out there that's struggling to provide for their family, Greg, what tips would you have for a guy who's struggling right now? Maybe the guy wants to run. Maybe the guy wants to jet out of there. Maybe the guy is freaking out how they're going to take care of it, so he just bolts. Any guy that's in that situation right now, Greg, what advice would you have for that individual
Hmm.
that's indecisive? Do I stay? Do I go?
Listen, I would this is my opinion. Regardless of whatever situation's going on with the baby's mom, just put that aside. Who cares about that? Put yourself in the kid's shoes. Don't you want to be there for your kid?
Oh,
Like, don't you want to, you know, teach them and watch them grow? I mean, watching them grow up, it's so much fun. Yeah, it's exhausting. It's worth it. So what? You're tired. Who cares? It's fun, and it's yours. They're a part of you, and to watch them in their silly little mannerism, or like, oh wow, I used to do that, or I do that, or I cross my legs like that, or I make a silly face like that, and they do it naturally because they're a part of you. Just be there for them. And if financially you can't, do the best you can, but be there for them. In the beginning, they just want you there. That's even if you only see them once a week, just be there for them. You know, they'll make their own opinions and make their own decisions when they're older, but they want to see, they'll know your true character as they get older, and they they want that. They need that other person there. Forget what's going on with you and your girl. That doesn't mean shit. The kids don't care about your relationship status. They care about their relationship with the parents. As long as you're there for them, that's all they care about. And that's all you should care about too.
And you often see the roles reversed where it becomes about the parents, not about the kids, and that's something that's another
Yep.
uh, pandemic, I think, in this country, is that we don't put the kids first, and this is why we
Nope.
have books in school that
Yep.
promote pedophilia and promote this type of like gender mutilation. And I'll say it. I mean,
It's a
it's
whole other
disgusting,
category, man. It's wild.
disgusting. It's
Yo, you want to
absolutely
do that when
disgusting.
you're of age and adult? No
No
problem.
problem.
Go ahead. Go for it. I don't care. But not a friggin' kid.
No,
They don't know enough yet. They're not even
no,
developed enough.
no. And they're
Listen, they
vulnerable.
change their minds minute to minute. You can't make a life altering decision on a minute by minute mindset of a 8-year-old or a 10-year-old.
Well, remember that the weak prey upon the most vulnerable.
Of course. And now, listen, you want to get real deep. That's why they don't want two parents home. That's why if there are two parents, they want them working. So they're in the system more while the parents are off at work, and then they just brainwash, brainwash, brainwash. That's a whole other thing. You get a lot of shit for that. But there is some truth to it, I think. It
I do
makes
too.
sense. It makes sense.
I do too. I think, I mean, as someone who doesn't have, a child,
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that I think about if I were to have a kid is my own stability and making sure that I'm grounded and I'm rooted in something, whether
Yeah.
it's God, faith, the church, something that I can dig my feet into, something that I'm firmly planted. Now, once I have that plant, right, it it it, it doesn't matter who waters or plants a seed as long as God can watch it grow, and that's right from the Bible, right? So, I mean, it should matter who you decide to procreate with, right? But when it is your child, it could be, from maybe you have a one night stand with somebody and stuff happens, or this or that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now that seed is grown, and like you have to be rooted in something. I think if you're able to root yourself and have some stability, I think that's the first step in having a family is your own personal stability. And I think if you're stable in certain ways, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the financial, the spiritual, the financial stuff, and all the other components kind of fall into place because now I have like my firm, whether it's a job, anything. You think there's merit to that, Greg?
Yeah. You have to have. They have to have them all going, but it all starts in your head. If you get your head right, I think the other things, like you said, will trickle in. You just have to
Right.
have the right mindset. You got to really want it. You can't like half step this.
No,
There's no way you
no,
could do that.
no, because once that baby comes, there's no turn back.
Nope.
you know. And I think
Mm-hmm.
you see a lot of stories too. Like I just read a story about the owner. Did you read about this? The owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. He's like 70, and he's having
I
a
know who he
baby,
is. He's having a
right,
baby.
with a 26-year-old,
Well, she knows what she's doing.
right? Okay, so if he takes it serious, right,
Take it
and
serious. Come on.
if the odds are he's probably not going to live to see that kid turn like 30. Right? If you're 70 years old,
30.
I'm just I'm
Well, you're
trying to give the
very
benefit
nice,
of the
Mike.
doubt,
You're very nice.
right? You gotta think to yourself, even at our age, it's like,
He's
all
not
right,
going to live to see her turn 30.
right, probably not.
Sorry,
But
just
it's
kidding.
our job. No, well, I mean, you're probably not far from the truth. But I always figured, like, all right, it's my job to make sure like my kid or kids have all the tools they need to be successful based upon our life experiences. It's like, don't do this. If you do this, this will happen. Like, I'm not gonna deter my kids saying, hey, look, if you do this, this is going to happen. And then I tried to go, Dad, you were right. No kidding. I tried to warn you. Right. So some people, you got to learn for themselves. But I think it's our jobs as men to make sure that our kids have all the tools they need to be successful. Because if you look at, I hate going back to Kobe. No one thought Kobe Bryant was going to be taken at 42 years old. His wife didn't, his girls didn't. And now his wife has a burden to raise those kids by herself. Now, okay, we can talk about, oh, well, she's financially taken care of, but it's not about money.
That's one
It's not,
piece.
this is one piece. There's a whole other level that goes on that I don't know. I mean, Kobe's wife is one of the strongest women I've ever seen. The way she is in public, because I'm sure it tears her apart knowing that, she's never going to see her daughter get married, or maybe, and that Kobe will never be able to dance with his daughters at their daughter wedding. So there's a lot of things that go on. But I feel that as men, it's our responsibility to give our kids all the tools they need to be successful. Because if we were to
Mhm.
leave this world in an instant, at least we know, hey, my dad taught me to save money. My dad taught me to treat people with kindness, right? And I'll use you as the example, because I believe that you are the prototype when it comes to life skills. And I
Thanks,
mean
Mike.
that sincerely, because you've been trying to teach me to save money for years. Did I listen? No. That's why I always say, for those that are old enough to remember, Greg is Arnold Schwarzenegger and I'm Danny DeVito and we're twins. But I mean, when you think about all the lessons that Freddie T taught you,
Yeah.
right? And how here you are at this phase of life, in your mid 40s, and we're approaching that, as crazy as it sounds, we're approaching that second phase of life. How important were those skills that your dad taught you? And I'm just leaving your mom out of it, but that
Hmm.
your dad taught you, especially with a father and a son. Mother and daughter have that bond. Father and son, father, mother, their relationships are different. But from a father to a son, how important was it with those skills that your dad taught you? How did that propel you to excel in this part of your life? Because you are an exceptional father.
Thank you.
And that, I'm not just saying that. I think
Hmm.
anyone that knows you, anyone that sees what you do with your children, how you're always there for them, driving them to school, picking them up, taking them to doctor's appointments. I mean, your kids come first. There is
Hmm.
no there's no confusion. The lines aren't blurred. It's
Hmm.
kids first, and if more men, maybe a lot of men do that, they just kind of have it in different, they orient that in different ways, or they
Hmm.
act it out in different ways. But not to get sidetracked, to go back to my question, Greg, how important were the skills that your dad taught you that allowed you to excel at this point in your life? How important were those skills and
I
those
think
lessons
they're
taught
they're
you?
very important. They just the being self-sufficient and handy to do things, to make things, to if something breaks, to fix it, to save some money, and he was always there for me. And it was a great example. Like I never had to wonder or worry or anything. They were both there for me. So I want that same feeling on my girls. And obviously you can't duplicate, but you can try to replicate as best you can.
Right.
I want them to have a great childhood. I had a great childhood. I always knew my parents were there. They went to all my activities and my sporting events and all that stuff, and I definitely want the same. I just want the same thing. So it was huge what he did and what they did for what I'm doing now. I'm just trying to do the same thing for my girls.
Right. And we
Hmm.
have to keep that in mind as men and women
Yeah.
too, but because it's EmpowerMAN, and I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
when you identify role identity, it's like you
Hmm.
said, the male has always been considered the provider, but
Hmm.
roles have changed, and it's important for, obviously, the mother to, give their 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 share of it. But I'm
Hmm.
speaking as a man. There's something I can't speak from a woman's perspective. We can just speak from a man's perspective.
Just
How important
identify
it
as
is.
one. You're fine.
I only identify as a girl when I go to a bar,
Okay.
because I don't like paying for drinks. Well, I go to the same spots all the time. But it's extremely important for guys out there to make sure, like, you stay present for your children. That
Yeah.
you it
They're
it
watching
they're
everything you do.
everything.
Everything you do. So,
It's
and
it's
it takes a
crazy.
long time for them to, you have to say something to a kid like 10 times before they hear it. And obviously manners are a big thing, but now it's getting into habits and routines, like make your bed every morning
Right.
for my older one. And she slowly started doing it every day. She missed one day and she remembered she didn't do it. She goes, "Oh my God, I forgot." I'm like, "It's okay. Do it tomorrow." I caught her this morning, and I don't even know where she gotten this from. Like military creases. This was like you walked into a hotel room. The only thing missing was the towel, like made into a fucking animal.
Uh,
I walked it. She goes, "Look, look, Dad, look," and I was like, it was amazing. I can't even make the bed that nice. It was like symmetrical. It looked like she ironed the sheets. It was amazing. And she was so proud. I'm like, all right, it's starting to kick in, like, because it's a silly little habit, but it will. You want to start your day doing it. Your room is neat. Your room is clean. Now it goes to clean up after yourself. We can't go upstairs until you finish cleaning. All right, you finished drawing. Let's put everything away for next time. That's where you know where it's going to be so you don't lose things, and also you want the area cleaned. When they leave shit out and they trip over something and they look at me and cry, I'm like, "Are you okay?" Obviously, but they got scared. I'm like, "That's why we clean up so you don't trip over that." And now it's slowly starting to all take shape with Farah, like, clean up, let's do this, make my bed, all that stuff, put the stuff in the hamper, like the routine stuff. But those are life skills that'll translate to saving money, being on time for a job, or doing studying, or whatever it is. It all relates.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah, it was hysterical. I walked in, I couldn't believe it.
Isn't that that's so cool? That's just so cool, man. That's so
It's
cool.
crazy. She like tucked the sheets. It was crazy. It's wild. I should have taken a picture.
Aw.
Yeah.
And all those kids want to do is please their parents. That's it. That's all they want to
Well,
do, for the most part,
Ruby
right?
not so much. Ruby likes the villain, so she's. I want to be naughty today. I'm like, please don't. Can I get one day? But she's soon to be 3, so she's in that age range where she doesn't give a shit about anything. But I am taking Farrah to her first concert at the end of June. We're going to see Lainey Wilson, sir. First country concert for me, and Farrah's first concert.
Really?
Yeah. So she is super excited. We have her outfit already picked out. Oh yeah,
That's so
it's
awesome.
all it's gonna be cool.
My first country concert was Garth Brooks at the Pepsi Arena in Albany, New York. Man, we had phenomenal seats, and Garth Brooks was amazing.
Isn't he like a
He,
dick though now?
uh, I don't know.
Whatever. I might be confusing him with
It
another one.
it's this, yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's. But he was absolutely. Country music concerts are fantastic. At least the old school country. So I'll be interested to see how your daughter likes the concert
I think she's gonna really like it.
music. Oh, it's in country music. It's
She
it's
loves her
it's
music, so she has a couple favorite songs. I think she'll play at least one of them. So
oh, it's so
it's
touching.
called Watermelon Moonshine. So I just call it the Watermelon song because she's like, "What's moonshine?" I'm like, "Oh, it's like a sippy drink, like
Yeah.
like a watermelon flavored drink." So she doesn't have to know what that is exactly yet,
Nice.
but that's her favorite song.
Wow.
So pretty excited about that.
Yes. Moonshine is it's like
Oof,
paint thinner.
oof. I've only
Really
drank
is.
one thing stronger than that, and it was from Hungary. It was like pure grain from Hungary, shipped over, and it was wild. It was disgusting, but it was like if you took like this much,
Yeah.
rocked instantly. So
I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but there's a Puerto Rican plant or something called a mama wama, and it's like I think it's a rum, and I had it years and years ago, and that was pretty that was
mm.
pretty intense. But oh yeah, the hungry. My ex went to Croatia and brought me back some stuff. It was in a clear. Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about
Mm,
because I had something like this from Croatia.
mm,
But anyhow, Greg, let's
hmm.
wrap this up, man.
Yeah.
Give me some final thoughts in regards to family planning and some of the, put a little bow on this here when it comes to the preparation.
Hmm.
Any final thoughts in the preparation for having a family and
Just
and being practical?
be on the same page with your partner in all areas.
Mm,
Obviously finances, but really
right.
be on the same page, and it's open
Mm,
communication. But be on the same page financially, but also all the other steps. I'm a big, like I said, know your rights in the hospital. Tour different hospitals. Don't just go to one, because they serve fucking lobster or whatever. It's a big thing up here, Greenwich Hospital.
Lobster.
Yeah. So get educated in your rights and map out, like anything else, map out a plan of what you want your birth to look like. And obviously set your home up correctly and have plans in place and, emergency contacts and extra water and fallback plans. I'm a big fan of them.
Right.
Not to, driving yourself crazy, but if you bring a newborn home and the power goes out, what are you going to do?
Right.
Something simple, and don't say I'm crazy. It happens all the time. What are you going to do?
Right.
And if it's winter up here, what are you going to do? How you heating the house? Where are you going? Do you have enough gas in the car to get to a hotel if you have to go? Like, there's like silly little things that 90% of people do not think about. But just saying, all little things like that. Just be on the same page with your partner, have a plan, and know what you want out of your birth and know your rights. That's all I'm going to say. And
Sounds
have
good,
fun with it.
man.
It's supposed to be fun. You're bringing a life into the world, and there's only so much you could do. The rest is in whoever's hands it is. You can do all the tests in the world, and at the end of the day, you only have so much control. You have to be okay giving up a little bit of control of whatever happens. So
And it's a miracle too, because not everyone gets the right to have a baby. Some people
it's
may
sad
not.
because some people
Yeah.
that really should can't, and other people that do have kids shouldn't have had kids.
Right.
I'll say it. We all think it. But I know a lot of people that would be amazing parents. I want nothing more than to have kids, and they can't.
Yeah.
And I know some pieces of shit that have kids that shouldn't have them because it just perpetuates the situation, and it's another generation of them.
That too. So.
So,
Well, Greggy T, this was interesting episode.
hmm
Definitely, I think something that needs to be talked about now because I mean, we talked about it. There are challenges that I guess with every generation
hmm
that are different from the previous, and I think as men and women to have open dialogue on certain things in regards to family planning. You just can't be like, oh, whoopsie daisy, I'm pregnant. Okay, well, let's figure this out, and
hmm
you know, being practical about it and as practical as you can be. But
yeah,
I think one of the things that we always talk about is just have a plan.
that's it.
Write it down on paper. It
That's
doesn't have
it.
to be like a PowerPoint presentation, but
Nope.
checklist. This check, 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 check.
hmm
So
And you can read all the books in the world. Some help, but just be there. And no matter what, you can read 50 books. You will panic when you're home for the first time with that little kid and all those books you read are out the window. They'll eventually come back in your brain, but you just got to figure it out as you go. And that's why I said when you're figuring things out as they go, your needs, wants, and what you're used to doing in your time frame and your schedule is out the window. You just got to go with it.
yeah,
So
and
that's
that's
it.
that's a great way to end it, man. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be down here next week, which I'll be amped for. So
Couple days, man.
we'll go on a little boating expedition, and
Little
we'll
boat
crush it.
ride. Mm-hmm.
And we'll have another action-packed episode. I mean, June 1st it is here. We're about 5 months away from arguably the biggest election of our lives. Doesn't matter what you do, who you vote for, go out and vote, and just realize, you know, that you need all the tools you need. Acquire that knowledge. I mean, sure, you can vote for someone based upon likes, but I encourage people to vote on people's track record. Just ask yourself, like Ronnie Reagan told us, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? It's a simple question. If you believe you are, then you'll vote a certain way. If you believe you're not, then that's another thing that you have to ask yourself too.
Country's a mess. Anyway, look what happened from last week's episode to this week's. A lot's happened in a week politically. So let's see what happens next week and the week after. It's like a big
Yeah.
fucking circus at this point. We're the laughing stock of the world. So
Yeah.
it's embarrassing. It's
And
embarrassing.
I think people should keep this in mind too. I mean, I think the average Republic, I saw this online, lasts 250 years, and America's been standing for 248. So, we're
Yeah.
if you believe in that type of stuff, just know we the people still stands, and it's a very pivotal point in our lives where you know it could change a lot. So just keep that in mind. And Greg and I we're going to do the best that we can to make sure that we impact as many people as possible, so that men and women can step into the life they're meant to live.
Yeah. Sounds good, man.
Yeah, man. From the free state of Florida, I'm signing off. Y'all have a blessed week, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks again, everybody. Be safe out there.